Okay. Oh, we're back. Okay. Well, hey, that was a fun adventure that we went on, and some of you came back too. I can understand it. Okay. So on start. So we're like well into the beginning of the life cycle. Once you are on start, once on start is called the activity is in the resumed state, meaning that it's active, it's doing things, it's ready to receive user input. Let's see here. Oh, on resume. Yeah, and on okay. And so now a resume can be paused, and then when it comes back, on resume is called, and it'll remain in the resume state until something puts it off into the pause state. So either you've gone you've gone away, you've gone back to the home screen or whatever, or you received a phone call, something else that takes the attention, takes the user focus, I guess, away from that activity. And on resume and on pause are mirror images of each other. And so then if you pause something on resume, when you pause something like maybe an animation or whatever, on resume should start it up again. Okay, so again, when the user leaves the activity, on pause is invoked. And so then, so for instance, and really what on pause should do is calm some things down. So maybe they'll release some system resources. Hey, stop downloading something, stop streaming it, or maybe slow it down. Like, oh, hey, listen, I don't need to get a GPS update every 10 milliseconds. I can get one every 5 milliseconds because maybe now I'm getting close to where I'm going, but whatever, you're not. It doesn't have the full attention of the user. Pausing is meant to be a short-lived thing. So maybe I'm just going to read a text or whatever. So this is paused. Applications should be paused for a matter of seconds or maybe a minute or two. It does not it's off in the background then doing nothing. Or it's not like it's living in the background doing nothing. Yeah. Also, if you're in multi-window mode, which obviously we are because we're higher than API level 24. You can have another window that comes on top of it partially, or whatever. So your UI is still visible. You just can't interact with it. So these are all reasons that it becomes paused. Again, this is kind of redundant, I guess. After on pause completes, activity is the paused state. And so it'll sit there until it's resumed or until it's killed. And so then either it goes to on resume or on stopped. On stop is when it becomes no longer visible. So it's you're not seeing it anymore. It becomes in the stop state. You get the on stop callback. And the whole idea here is on stop is meant to be invoked right before the application, before the activity is terminated. And so then often it'll release some system resources. It'll do other configurations like that. And also it's okay for onStop to do some work, to do teardown operations like saving data off to a database or maybe making some final call back over the network to somebody else. Now, the activity still resides in memory. It's still hanging out using some memory. It's just not doing anything. It's not attached to the window manager anymore, and so then you can't really interact with the widgets. Things need to be reinitialized. And this is because it might come back after being stopped. That's okay. Let's see here. So the system still maintains the state of the UI component. So it's still there in a bundle. Well, we haven't figured out exactly how to do that. So then it can be restarted after it's stopped. Finally, the last thing is in activities lifecycle is the onDestroy method. And this is when the activity is finished. So activities can decide I'm done. I'm going to destroy myself, and it goes away. Or when there are certain things that like it being cleared out of memory and stuff like that, or you change the device rotation. That'll also cause it to be destroyed. And this is interesting, right? So it's like, this is something you don't need to worry about with desktop apps, right? I mean, if you turn your computer, the app doesn't care, right? But with a phone, this is all part of that, part of working on that device. You change its orientation, and all of a sudden, you get a brand new activity because you might have a completely different user experience when it's rotated 90 degrees. right? I always see this in the YouTube app when I've got it in portrait style, and it's got the video playing up at the top and sort of its dimensions there, and it's got all of the comments or links or whatever the stuff, or the rest of the playlist or whatever. But then I turn it 90 degrees and it goes into full screen mode, which is exactly what I as a user want. But that full screen mode is a completely different UI, a completely different activity than it is in portrait. So anyway, that's why when you rotate the device, you get a brand new activity. And on destroy is like, okay, it is done. All of the resources get away. Everything that is stopped should be, or everything else should be stopped. No, I had a pretty picture someplace. No, I drew like this big old picture of the transition diagram. I was very proud of that picture. Let me see if I can find it. Where would that be? Would that be here? Yeah. Open activity, lifecycle.pdf. Yeah, so here it is. So it starts out, the activity is launched, on created call is in the created state. Then it's on the start, then it starts up. Now it becomes visible. And it's visible until, it's visible, and then it gets resumed back into the active state. It's active until it's paused, so that could be, something pops up on top of it. If it then becomes visible, or if it gets recalled to the foreground, on restart is called, which brings it back into visible, which brings it back into active. Otherwise, if it's paused and it's stopped, it goes to the on stop is called, it goes to stop, and finally it's destroyed. Okay, well, it's not so awesome in the diagram, but anyway, how do I go back to full screen mode? Hello, Acrobat Reader, window, Android.
Is there nothing like a recovered state in that?
Well, from the activities point of view, no. Now your data, on the other hand, right? The idea here is that you save your data out for later. And if we ever figure out how to get the bundle to work, so if I knew more about how you're supposed to use the bundle, the idea there is that you save like the application state in the bundle. It's not exactly the same as the data. Right? The data, you probably want to have it persist longer than the application, even off of some cloud service or maybe something on your phone. Certainly, like if you want to have a one-time sign-on or whatever, you got to save the credentials, but the authentication key there. So there's other mechanisms for that, which I'm not going to cover tonight. Yes, Anna?
How do you want us to persist the data for this assignment?
I haven't decided yet. I need to figure. So I don't know yet. So how I want you to approach this is that first learn about building the user interface, and then so I guess it's probably okay to store things in fields and variables and stuff maybe. I'm not too sure. And so but tonight is all about playing with the UI and learning how to use Interactive Studio, how to build the UI, and then next week I'll advise you on how best to handle the data, which is my way for saying, I don't know. You can tell me if you read ahead. How come I'm getting the... Oh, here we go. Now it's looking better. Okay.
Does the bundle exist after you destroy the main activity?
I thought so. That was my understanding.
Yeah.
I want to see it demonstrated though. I haven't figured it out.
Count on exit on stop.
Yeah.
And then it restarts at 0.
Yeah, that's what I saw too. So maybe maybe it's not. Maybe it's really meant for the. And it maybe even says so here. So let's see here on destroying. So here again, system may destroy an activity in order to free up resources. So you can kill it explicitly, or it's like, oh, listen, your activity has been paused for a while now. It's late in its life cycle, so I'm just going to destroy you. So I've got so to reclaim your resources.
It says it is restored.
Okay. So the system retains instant state, after destroyed. Okay. So information about, there's this. Okay, that actually, okay, that's interesting. Right, okay, so this is destroyed. Okay. I need to figure out how that works exactly. So yeah, according to the documentation that I read and copied into the slides, so you've got instance state, which includes information about the UI, and that's why it's important to call super.onSave instance state, and all that's put into the bundle. And then when and that's when the activity is recreated, and when it's recreated, it's from the when the activity is recreated, the UI will be repopulated with the data in the bundle and a call to onRestore instance state. Huh. So yeah, I wonder why ours isn't working, because we never saw our onRestore instance state method called. I don't know. onRestore instance state. You call super, and then if it's not null, I get int count. And we never got this in a breakpoint, which maybe you wouldn't, because after you kill the application, it's not. Yeah, I don't know about that. I should go off and play with it. So in theory, it should all work that way. I don't really think that's the best way to handle the data in your application. But I'll go read about that this weekend. Okay, so now let's start talking about how to how to use intents to do stuff. So activity, let's see here, right. So when you call the start activity method from an activity, that will launch a new activity, and you give it an intent. So the intent can be expressed as, here again you have those implicit intents, those explicit intents. So if you say, hey, here's an intent, and you give it the JavaLang class for the activity, that's an explicit intent, it'll go off and launch that activity. And then you can send data to it with the putExtra method. If you if you have an intent to perform some operation and then returns in a result, you can use the start activity for result method, and then that basically goes off and spawns the activity, gives you a little identifier in an int that corresponds to that operation that you're evoking with the intent. And then when the activity that's invoked does its thing, it returns a result in code as like, hey, I was able to do your thing, or no, I wasn't. And then the parent that called it receives another intent that said, oh yeah, by the way, this thing you spawned, well, here's the result via an intent, and then it can handle it appropriately. Which is maybe something you'll want to use. I don't know. I'll think about it. And so this transition causes, so let's say you got A that transitions into activity B. So A will be paused, or it'll be stopped, depending on, well, I'm not sure why. And then B is created. So B starts up again, receives the intent, can handle things. But here's the order in which things happen. So first, A is paused, so its onPause callback will be invoked. Then B is created and started and resumed, which then fully launches the B activity and lets the user interact with it. And then after and then A is stopped. So if A loses user focus. I figured A would just lose user focus anyway. Okay. So I don't know. Let's see if we can create ourselves a simple intent. Actually, you know what? While I'm having fun dorking around with all this stuff, we really need to get to the UI stuff. So I'll play with this more on my own and come back with good examples of how to make all this stuff work.
Okay.
Yeah.
A little bit off topic. But
Okay.
The unrestored instance that we were trying to get the hit, it's only hit if the process that you background was killed by the OS, and then when you open it back up, that's when. That was my understanding of it, but yet our code didn't seem to demonstrate that. So there must be some gap in my understanding. We didn't? Yeah, we didn't. We just set it to the background.
I'm pretty sure I killed it. So let's try it.
Unless closing it isn't actually killing it.
Yeah, closing it calls the on destroy or something like that, which is different. It's not destroying the state.
So how do I do what I want it to do?
So there's no reason to restore the instance state if it's not.
Yeah, it's an anti-pattern to use the unrestored instance state.
That's weird.
There's a developer option in settings where you can cause it every time you swipe it.
Oh, really? Settings on the phone or settings in IntelliJ? Or
Um,
on the phone? Interesting. Okay.
So
Okay.
we just shouldn't count on restoring C state to be restoring the state. That's not a
Oops.
unless the system runs out of resources.
So now it's 2. Oops. And so then I do this, and I'll launch it again. So I was on 2, and now it's 0 again. So somewhere it got reset. So like when I just move it over here, or maybe I start another app. Come on, Chrome. Okay. And now I bring up, oh, it's still over there. And now when I bring it back, it goes to 1. I go to home. I bring it back, it goes to 2. But if what happens if I power off? So I power off, power on. Oh, it's a 3. No, but that was probably because, well, I guess we have no way of knowing whether or not.
It probably just, it didn't even power off, it did what you.
Oh, yeah.
If you hold it, you can actually like power it all the way off.
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
Restart, maybe? Reboot to safe mode. No. Oh, okay, so I can't just I just power it off and power it on, I guess. Oops. Power off, shutting down. I don't know. That was weird. Wait, hello 2. Oh, no, okay. It just
It just closes the emulator.
and closes the emulator. Okay, well, that's not an unreasonable thing to do. I guess you power it off. But I think when I restarted it, it's restarted in power off mode or something. I think I've done this before, and it can. I'm not good with phones. Right, it's powered off, and so now I power it on. It's doing its thing. My fan is starting to heat up. Wow, it's working hard. Okay. Now if I launch the application, oops, here, swipe down. Oh, here it is. If I launch my application, it's presumably, oh, what? Okay, so yeah, it's 0 again. So yeah, I need to figure out how that works, because that would be pretty important to know. Oh, interesting, it just said saving data. I can't imagine that would have been anything. Anyway, okay, I don't know. Sorry? It didn't appear to. It was back at 0 again if I launched it again. Now I did not rebuild the app. It's back at 0. So now if I, and now it's at 1. Oops, what is it doing? Oh, I see. Now it redeployed it again. Yep. Okay, well that's interesting. Okay, services. I don't think I go into too much detail here. Sort of a general thing. Hey, there's something happening in the background. Interesting enough that you can have in your app, you can have activities and services. It's all running inside the same process, so they're in different threads and stuff. You can. Why is it beeping? What is going on? Turn off emulator. I know, right? How? Yeah, right. Left. Services can be invoked also. By binding to it, and you kind of get a nice Java object that you can use to interact with it. And then you can also access them remotely via something that I forgot to put on the slide. So I don't know if we'll be using services or not. This is when I need to figure out how best to represent your data. Okay, here's something that is more complete, and a description of user interfaces. So this is probably the bulk of the interesting stuff tonight. So you've got your activity, right? And your activity, we talked about this life cycle. You can see what happens when when it started and when it stops and everything like that. Let's talk about now making pretty things for your activities. Now, your user interface is built out of objects, and you have objects that represent things like the various widgets that you can interact with, buttons and text fields and calendars and scroll bars and everything like that. They're all represented as objects. And we'll see there's a class hierarchy of all sorts of things. There's also, and those are all called views. So a view is the abstract superclass of objects that represent some widget in your UI. So you have widgets themselves, but an important part of user interface design is putting those widgets in the right place so that it looks good and makes sense. And that layout is described and is implemented in objects that extend view group. So this is kind of interesting, right? You have an object that represents a layout algorithm. So something like, put all of your put all of the children widgets of that view group, of that layout, into a vertical column. So that is represented by an object itself. Now, objects have properties, fields, getters and setters, that represent the information, the state of that object. Like, for instance, we saw the text view. It has the value in the text field. You can also, if you've got some sort of slider widget, you can say, hey, it's 50% along or 75% along. So the whole idea is that you've got these objects that represent these visual things. I guess that makes sense, right? I mean, you've got a language with objects. You use them to do stuff with. You can create UI objects in two ways. If you want, you can go and call all the APIs. You can say, hey, put a new, give me a new text view. And put it inside this layout. You can make everything in Java code, but that's kind of verbose and kind of hard to use. And so what they recommend, and most of what we'll see here, I think probably all of what we'll see here, is that you declare them inside XML files. And this is what we got a preview of when we looked at our activity main.xml. So here you've got this constraint layout, which is one of those view groups, and inside that is a text view, as your hello world text. And the nice thing about these XML files is that it separates the UI and its layout from all the logic that works on it. So all the logic is implemented as Java code. All the things that handle events, all the things that respond to the life cycle of the activity. All of that is best expressed in Java code, but all of the layout, all the configuration, labels, and all that kind of stuff is all there in XML, which is a much more compact way of doing it. It also allows you to have the same logic code, sometimes even the same activity code. You can have the same activity that works on different views, different XML files that are maybe configured and optimized for different device sizes. So we're not going to see it in this class. So by design, we're all working on exactly the same device, right? It's that emulator for the Pixel 2 API 29. In the real world, though, you want to make sure that your app works well on a variety of devices with different form factors, with different screen resolutions, things like that. And so then a very common thing to do is to have a different set of views, a different set of UI for various screen sizes. It's sort of like on I'm more familiar with iOS and Apple, where you've got an app. And there's a different version for the iPad than it is on the iPhone because the form factor is different, right? You want to display the data in your app differently because you've got more screen real estate. However, the logic behind it might all be the same, right? And so instead of having to duplicate all that logic just because you're working on a different device, you have the same activity, but then you have different views based on the size of your device's screen resolution. Another eye chart. Sorry. So if you're playing along at home, there's a class hierarchy for views. At the top of that class hierarchy is a class called view, capital V view. And here are some examples of different kinds of view. So you've got, and we'll go through all of this stuff. You've got text views. So this is a widget that displays text and lets the user do stuff with the text. So you've got a clock widget. You've got a button. There's a hierarchy of buttons. And I'm sorry. Well, you saw this in the lectures online. Do you know how to read this diagram? This is UML.
Not the loop.
Okay, so yeah, right. So the arrow, the kind of triangular arrow points to the class's superclass. And then this says that a view group is a view that contains a bunch of children views. So as we'll see in a minute, a view group lays out other widgets, and so it has a bunch of children, which are also views. So which means a view group can contain buttons and checkboxes and progress bars and all that kind of good stuff. So I'm going to go through this stuff in more detail, but I guess realize that you've got different kinds of widgets, and they are modeled with all of these classes. So let's walk through some of this class hierarchy and see what it can do. So the base class of all your widgets is called view. It's basically a rectangular piece of screen real estate, and it has some properties, but that's all it knows. So it doesn't know that it's a button. It doesn't know. It doesn't care, right? It's the superclass. And so there are properties that configure how the widget is displayed, and we'll see lots of examples of that when we talk about the individual widgets. Now, we'll go into this in a little while, but an important thing is how the widget interacts with the user. Now, not every widget is going to interact with the user. It might just display some text. It might just be a label. It'll just sit there. But more interesting are things like text fields that you can enter text into, buttons that you can click to do things, what do they call them? Spinners that you can use to browse a bunch of photos or whatever. Interacting with the widgets is really, really interesting, and we'll see how to handle all of that later. Okay, and then the widget itself just knows how to draw itself, but doesn't necessarily know where to draw itself. Its size might depend, yes, on its contents, but it also might depend on its context. Where it is on the screen. It might want to maximize itself to take the most screen real estate it can. So its position and ultimately its size is influenced by the view group that it's a part of. The look and feel itself, the colors, the font, the some aspects of how it's drawn are determined by something called the theme. I'm not going to go into the themes here, but it's basically dependent on, or at least heavily influenced by the platform itself. Different Android devices have slightly different color schemes, looks and feels. So it feels like it's a pixel, like it's a galaxy or something like that. So that's the theme. So that's more stuff about views. Views have an ID, and that was the thing that we added. That was the thing that we added here. So the ID, says, oh, this has an ID, and then I can grab it. I can go and find that widget by its ID. And so this then needs to be unique among the activity, I guess. Or no, across the application, they'll have to have unique IDs. And it's got other stuff like tags. Optional ID, that it has some extra meta information. I don't really know what the use case is for that, but it can have it. But all views can have it. And then all views have tooltip text that when you, let's say like once it gets keyboard focus, it'll pop up the tooltip text and tell you, a little bit about it, a little bit what the widget does. So all views have all of those properties. Now let's talk about some views that can be instantiated, some views that you can put in your UI. So text view is a class that displays text to the user. And so then it's got some properties like the text to be displayed and whether or not it displays a number and if it's editable or not. By default it's not, and we saw that it's there. Actually, let's change, let's make this editable and see what happens. So Android editable equals true. What is deprecated or something? Editable shall be used with text view. Change to edit text. Oh, okay, cool. It is deprecated. So I should probably use something called edit text. Well, let's just see what happens anyway. Let's see here. Does it need to reload? It's reloading. Here. Nope, it doesn't work anymore. Okay, so I guess you can't make it editable. It's probably inherited by some of the subclasses of TextView because TextView is a is a parent class. Actually, can I fix it? Remove attribute, provide feedback. Okay, so what I can do is we'll change that to an edit text in a moment. And so you can have a hint, so when the text is empty, and if you can make it a text area by specifying the number of lines, and you can determine whether or not it's a password. All of this is covered in the API documentation, so let's go to that for text view. Let's see here. Here's bundle.
That's all it takes. You just change the text view to edit text.
Okay, that works.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, Android widget text view. Android widget. So much stuff. Widget. Classes text view.
Go to click on
Yeah,
it.
you should click it.
Oh, why does it take so long to load?
Then you hit
So we're already-
Nice. Okay, and so then lots of examples on how to do it, how to work with it. But here, yeah, it lists all of these XML attributes. This is probably where you want to go. Yeah, here's like editable. Now, does it say that it's deprecated? No, interesting. This says that it's not deprecated, but somehow IntelliJ knew about it. So, whatever. What was I going to look up? I was going to look. Oh, I was just going to show you that it's got a whole ton of. Let's see here, XML attributes. It's got a whole ton of things. So, like, should automatically capitalize with user types. Cool. Something called drawable tint. Nice to know. And you can read all about this stuff at your leisure. So lots and lots of stuff. Because remember, this is real. We're making real applications here. So this is professional stuff. Only the finest at Portland State University. Okay. Edit text is a subclass of text view that allows the text to be edited. And so then one of the cool things about this is that you can specify what's called the input type. So you can say that, hey, listen, what I'm editing here is a phone number. So actually, let's just try that. I'm just kind of curious. So let's make it an edit text.
You just change
Edit text.
it to say edit text.
And then let's see your text. We'll just leave it empty. And then we'll make it editable. Android, so your editable equals true. And then, oh, what doesn't it? Oh, I guess you don't have to because it's an edit text. Duh. And then Android, sorry, what was the name of that thing? Input type. Input type equals, let's make it a phone. Let's see what we got. Appointment book. We start it up, it's going to blow it away. How come it doesn't start it again? Because I have this nonsense up. Come on.
You can just make it a shortcut on the desktop so you don't have to keep opening the door.
Oh, wow. How do I do that?
Click and hold. And drag.
Oh, look at that. Oh, that's so cool. Wow, I don't know.
Actually, next to the run button.
Computers are hard. Well, is that what?
Next to the run button, you have a lightning that hot reloads your changes.
Oh, is that what Lightning does? Nice. Okay. Hello, 0. Oh, now it's giving me a keyboard.
That's phone.
So, 503. Oh, but okay. Can I delete stuff? Wow. It's nice that you've got like this little mouse, because like whenever I use my phone, big finger on it. So anyway, all right. 503. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Can I use my? Oh, I can. Okay, that's much faster. But oh, and I got this big huge one. So I bet.
You must be able to set digit.
I bet you can. Yeah. So anyway, I'm sure. Well, not, yeah, I won't spend the time. But anyway, you get all sorts of stuff. You can do like autocomplete, and actually, I don't know if that works with if the phone provides that, or if you need to have some callback to do the dictionary or whatever. It's all super cool. And and here again, Android wants to provide a consistent user experience, and so then instead of like rolling your own, you should learn about Android to see what it is that's available for you, and you should really try to use the standard things because just like we're using anybody else's code, people have tested this. This stuff has been used in many, many, many applications. So learn what Android offers and leverage that. There are a couple other kinds of text view that I just wanted to call out here. There's something called an autocomplete text view, which uses an object called an adapter that we'll talk about in a little bit to provide some suggested values. And there's also something called a text clock that displays the current time as text. I'm a little interested. I just want to see what that's like. So let's see here. I want to add another one of those. Text clock. Oops. Text clock. And layout width. Let's use wrap content for both of those. I'll explain what all that stuff means in a minute. What is it saying? It doesn't like. View is not constrained. It only has sign time position, so it'll jump to 0, 0. Add constraints. Oh yeah, so this layout I don't quite understand how to use it, but good enough for now. Oops. Let's see here. This is probably gonna put on something. Let's see here. Bottom of parent to the left of. Actually, what does it look like? Yeah, it always says it's. Oh, this looks like it might be ugly. I think put it on top of it because it's got the same constraints. To the, how about we do to the bottom of ID text, maybe? Oh, I don't know what this, I don't like this view. Wait, what does design view look like? Text, that's got a little red thing. Requires API level 17.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, why is it going to take me to use that? Oh, we should use API level 29 then. Okay, so I probably need to change that in the project somehow. SDK variables. No, not variables. Modules, maybe? Nah. Oh wait, yeah. Compile time, build tools, dependencies. Well, and then I might download a new SDK. Okay, maybe not. I don't know. Okay, so you can't use text clock. Sorry, or maybe you can. I don't know what'll happen.
Oh, default configuration. If you go back to modules, default configuration, you can do 29.
Oh no, there it is. I don't know, it worked. I got 8:02 p.m. right here. There it is. That's cool. That's neat. Anyway, fun toys to play with.
You got to work with your 15.
Yeah, I just ran it and it seemed to run. Oh. Okay. Buttons. Okay, so now let's do something a little bit more interesting. So a button is a text view, right? Displays text, but what you can do is you can click on it. You can tap on it. There are different kinds of buttons. You can have a compound button that is like checked or unchecked, and even that then has several variants. You can just have a checkbox, and you can. And what you can, so there's the checked attribute, and we can also invoke the toggle method on the checkbox object to then toggle it on and off. You can have a radio button. A radio button is when you have a group of little circle buttons where you can only choose one of them. And so you put that inside a radio group layout, so you can only get one button at a time. There are classes called switch and toggle button that let you slide between two options, kind of like a light switch, the on and off type thing. I think switch is vertical and toggle is left and right. I can't remember that. You can display. You can choose which the word that's checked for that is displayed when the switch is on and when the switch is off. And let's see here. Oh, okay. And so then they also have a convenience class called checked view text that lets you display a bunch of options and select if each one is on or off. So neat stuff to play with there. Actually, let's just put a button there here in our text. What is it complaining about now? Oh yeah, whatever. Actually, we'll take that out then.
It's really easy. No, go back to your project configuration.
So here in project configuration?
And then modules.
Modules.
Default config.
Oh, default config. Okay. Oh, okay. I see. Right. I don't have anything installed. I don't have 17 installed or whatever, which is fine. So it isn't going to like try to. It's going to rebuild everything, which is nice of it. Oh, good. Now the red goes away. Okay, well, that's cool. Nice learning. Thanks, guys. We'll call this mob programming. Mob learning. I'll go to lecture circuit and talk about it. Okay, cool. So we got the clock, and let's see here. Now let's put in a button. and wrap content. They'll complain about not having these things. Should probably use a different layout. Well, I'll get to that in a minute. To the bottom of, let's just put an ID on this thing. And by the way, instead of, I'm the kind of person that likes to edit the XML. You might be the kind of person that would rather work with some editor or whatever. So maybe in design mode you can change all this stuff. I don't know. It's like, can I add an attribute? Yeah, I mean, you can do all this stuff here. Can't zoom in very well, sorry. So anyway, I encourage you to play with it. It might be neat. Me, I like my XML. So let's see here, plus, what's it, ID, and plus ID, we'll call it clock. And we'll put this one to the bottom of ID clock. So we'll have a button, and let's see here, let's give the button some text. Android text, and we'll say, me. Okay, so let's see what we run it here. No USB devices, that is true. Hello? Oops, did the button not get displayed? What am I missing here? Oh, it's still thinking about it. Boy, you add a button. I guess like, oh, okay. All right. Okay, yeah, click me, cool. Now, nothing happens when I click on me, but I've gotten button there. Okay, that's good to know. Okay, so now I've got a button. All sorts of cool buttons. Okay. Other views, other widgets. So there's something called an image view, which lets you draw a picture. There's something called a drawable, and we'll see how you you create drawables in a little while. There are drawable can be anything that can be rendered. So it might be something like an image file, like a JPEG, or it could be something that's drawn automatically. It can be an SVG. That's all sorts of good stuff. And we'll talk about resources in a little while. But all these things reside in the drawable directory. Actually, we can go look now. We go over to the project, and here in the drawable directory, I guess there's also a drawable, okay, v24. Here is, I don't know, something. What is this, an SVG of some sort or something? Can I preview it? It's a big green square. Okay, that's nice. Actually, maybe we can add this big green square in our activity. So let's see here. This would be an image view. Oops. Image view. And then, yeah, wrap content. And then put all this stuff here. And I'll just say, let's see here, I'm going to need this anyway. So ID equals ID button. That's interesting. And then put it to the bottom of button. In the image view, let's see here, what do I, is there a drawable? Oh, no, I sort by the source. So the source equals drawable IC launcher background. Okay, and so wait, if I hit the little lightning bolt, it redeploys it? Is that what it does? Oh, instant run. Okay, hey, there it is. It's got a big old piece of green text now. Okay, but you can imagine you can put something a little bit more compelling there, and then include it in your application. I'm sort of like creating like Franken app, right here. It's like Frankenstein, but in app form, where I've just got a bunch of stuff there.
What does it mean, bottom of?
This I'll get to layouts in a little bit. I won't get to this specific layout, but I think it'll make a little bit more sense after the next break. 8 o'clock already. Time flies when you're learning about Android. Okay, so you can have various image views, and there's things like image button, which subclasses it. and it gives you quite a lot of flexibility, actually, so it's pretty cool. WebView. WebView is good when you've got like a screen in your application that should display some text, should display some HTML, right? So far, we've only seen pretty primitive tools for doing text. If you had, let's say you've got something like your license agreement or your help text or whatever, you don't want to have to lay all that out using text view, right? You want to have something that is that's like HTML, and so then WebView is good for that. You can display the contents of a web page. That being said, it's not a fully fledged web browser, and so this is here again. It's good for sort of like displaying some static content. It's not something that you'd want to use for like a rich internet application. I won't go into details here, but it's pretty cool what you can do with it. It's pretty advanced. It really is like a little. It's got some characteristics of a web browser, but if you really But if your application, if what you want to do is like go browse to a URL, let's say, hey, you've got a chat application and someone puts in a URL, have them click on that URL and then use an intent to launch the system's web browser, right? That's a better way to do it than trying to use WebView anyway to embed it. Okay, so those are widgets. So those are things that you can see. Now, the other class hierarchy that is impossible to read, apparently, has to do with these view groups. Now, view groups are objects that lay out other widgets according to various algorithms. So then as we saw over here, there is this, if we go to the activity main, if we go up to the top here, all of these widgets are declared inside something a constraint layout, which is a fancy thing, which actually I didn't even talk about in the notes, which is really good. Is really good for like this visual editor here. And so that's why Android Studio uses it. But what I'm going to introduce you to are some of the more fundamental ones that I think will then make it easier to understand what's going on with the fancy one. So let's talk, but first, before we talk about all these different kinds of layouts, let's talk about the position and size of widgets and how that is determined, right? So here again, when we authored our UI here in this XML, we didn't say where on the screen these widgets should live, right? We just said, oh, there is an edit text. Oh, there is a text clock. We didn't say exactly, oh, it is a pixel, or it is that coordinate this and it has this size that. Because if we did, that makes it, that would be very difficult and error prone, right? And what you really want is you want to have the smarts to lay out things that look good. And so then what these view groups do is lay things out and have them look good according to various algorithms. So widgets are a rectangle, and their position is determined by their top left corner, basically, right? And so remember algebra, you've got a coordinate system, and this is how computer graphics work. And for Android anyway, the position of a widget is determined by its top left corner. And this position is relative to the parent component in which it lives. There are two kinds of sizes. There's the measured width in which that's determined by its parent, but more importantly, there's the drawing width and the drawing height. And this is the actual dimensions when they are drawn on the screen. And so then you can specify these things if you want to have something that's fixed width or fixed height in units like pixels or density-independent pixels. But you can also use inches or millimeters if you really want to. But most of the time, unless you really want to have a very specific UI that doesn't change based on different devices, you'll let the layout manager do the work for you. There's something that I've used here which is important, which is the match parent versus the wrap content. So when you talk about your layout, and we see them here, we talk about the widget, and we say, listen, I want its width to wrap content, which means I want it to be its preferred size. So it's like I've got a button that has the click. Let's say a button that has the text "click me." I don't want it to be the full size of the screen. I don't want it to be like 127 pixels wide. Nope. You figure it out. Make it so it looks good given its text. And that's what wrap content means. You can also, and maybe we should just try it to figure out, to see what happened is, you can say match parent, which means be as big as its parent. So let's change, I don't know, what happens when we change the image view. Instead of wrap parent, wrap content, you say match parent for its width and for its height. So now I've got an image view. It's like, hey, listen, my width, my preferred width, my preferred height. Oh yeah, is as big as the parent. It's a square, and so it said, okay, great, make me as wide as the as my parent. That's what it did, and since it's a square, it didn't take up any. Its height, its max height, is that height of the square. It's clearly not what we want because it looks ugly, but that's what it does. And so then, when you configure your widgets, you can sort of give it hints as to how it should be laid out. Oops. Put those back to wrap content. Now, another thing to be aware of, I don't know if you're going to use it or not, is padding and margins. So when you think about the size of the widget, there is a border around it called paddings, which is the content, and then also it's you have the content, which is drawable, and then around it you have padding on the top, left, bottom, and right. And so then I don't know. Do I have? Oh, what can I do? Maybe. Oh, actually. Let me take another look at this. I wonder if there's a good example of adding padding. Actually, maybe there is. So if I add padding to the button on top, adding padding top of, let's say, 10 pixels, what does this do? Let's see here, it's still... Oh, it moved up a little. Yes, okay. Neat. Sorry, I didn't even see what happened there. Okay. Let's change it again, and let's move it to 20 pixels.
Yeah, it moves the text.
Okay.
But changing from 10 to 20. 10 was up and then 20 was back down in the middle.
So I'm not too sure what happened there. Okay. Interesting. Just have to play with. But anyway, you've got padding. Is it padding top or padding? Sorry, what?
I think that's default padding.
Oh, maybe.
Like 30 or something.
Yeah, so what happens if we change it to 0? No padding on top. Oh, okay. Interesting. Right? I don't know. Yeah, I guess it's internal. So yeah, okay, so it's padding around the text. Okay, neat. Stuff to play with. See, isn't this so much more exciting than like writing command line programs and REST APIs? Yeah. Awesome stuff. Good deal. Anyway, where are we at? Anyway, so when it comes to laying things out, there's these two phases. The first one is called measure, where it looks like where Android, when the screen is rendered, the runtime goes through and measures, sort of figures out, oh, hey, where, how big do all the widgets want to be, and where do I position them? Sorry, how big do they all want to be? And then the second pass is the layout that actually positions them based on what their preferred size is or the constraints of their parents. So that's what padding is all about. Margins, let's see here, right. Margins, on the other hand, are outside the drawable portion of the widget. So now let's add some margins to our button and see what we got. Margin top, and let's put 10 pixels there. Let's see what margins give us. Oops. Okay, again, I think that, actually, I don't know if that made a difference. Let's put 50 pixels. So it might be that it's invisible. I'm not sure, depending on how this layout works. I don't know how it respects margins. Okay, well, a little bit of change. So it had a top margin, which moved it down a little bit with respect to that big green spot behind it. You're probably not going to be playing with this stuff in your projects. But I want to educate you on how all of this stuff works. Okay, so that's basically, so when it comes to drawing the screen, when it comes to rendering the UI, you've created all of these objects. You have configured information about how they want to be laid out. So you've configured things like, you know, what the text to be displayed is, what the image to be displayed is, but you can also say how they want to be laid out. When it's rendered, there are these two phases. Things are measured, and then things are positioned, and that's how layouts work. That's how view groups work. Now let's take a look at some subclasses of viewout that actually provide algorithms. So algorithms for laying out widgets. So linear layout has children layouts, and it basically arranges them in a single row or a single column, depending on the orientation attribute. So let's just take a look. So linear layout. So let's see here. Linear layout. Okay, so I'm just going to see what happens here. I wonder if things are going to blow up. It might ignore all that stuff. Oh yeah, look at that. Huh. Now, okay, they're all horizontal. Because I changed the layout, and look, I still have the same widgets. Now they're just arranged differently. And it's interesting, like the order in which things came in also. And so now if I if I say orientation, and let's say now I want it vertical. Oh, now they're all vertical, but they're not centered and everything. And so, oh wait, there's gravity. Is that what the thing's called? Layout gravity. And let's see here. Center vertical. I don't know. Let's see what that does. Nope, didn't do much of anything. Okay, I don't know. So, gee, maybe we should stick with what. Well, I don't know how you want things to look, but we can do that later, and maybe I'll figure out how to do it. Anyway, so linear layouts will respect margins between the children and their horizontal alignment, their gravity. Oh, maybe I don't want layout gravity. I think I just want gravity. Sorry. Because that would be the gravity of its parent. Okay. Yeah, not very useful. So sorry, did I want center horizontal? So center. Oh yeah, maybe left to right is what I wanted. I can't believe how fast this turnaround is, though. That's amazing. Oh yeah, that doesn't look, well, it looks awful, but it doesn't look that awful. Okay, that's cool. Fun. So there's this gravity thing. You can also specify a weight that children have that determines how much of the screen they occupy. This is if you've got like a big user interface. Actually, it's really helpful when you've got, let's say you've got, your maybe you're trying to build something that looks like an email application where you have a couple of just like text fields, like, oh, here's the email address, here's the subject, but then you have the body of the message, you want it to be a big text area. The text area would have a heavier weight so that it occupied more of the screen. Oh, right, and here's where you can specify things like the gravity of the widget. Right, so if we wanted to have like a okay, let's say for whatever reason we want we can put the clock. We can say gravity, layout gravity is left. We'll put this on the left. Now it's over on the left. And okay, wow, it's now way over on the left. And so then let's put some padding left. Let's put it at 20 pixels. I don't know. It doesn't really like that. Why doesn't it like that? Oh, yeah, look at that. Okay. That's probably a good idea, right? This isn't, oops. Nice. You're right. Yeah, device. Anyway, now we gave it a little bit of padding. Okay. I don't know. Neat stuff. Linear layout, gravity, weight. Oh, I meant to take a break before all of this. Are you guys ready for a break? It's 8:25. I don't know. Soldier through or soldier? Okay. Because I don't think I don't have that much more, or maybe I do. I don't know. Who's following? How many? Do I have a lot of slides? Someone tell me how many slides I have. I don't know. I can probably say here. Wait a second. It's
9-ish.
okay. Yeah, let's just do it. Okay. So gravity and weight. That's cool. A relative layout. You lay out the children relative to each other, and so this is where you can say this widget is above another widget, or this one is aligned left or aligned to its parent. It's another way of specifying where you want the children relative to each other. And there are other layouts too, but I think this will probably be enough to get started with. And as we saw, there was this one that the IDE gives you. Okay. Now, so far, like this silly little UI that we've built, has just like a fixed set of widgets. It's really not displaying very much. But let's say that you wanted to have like a big old list of like options to scroll through, or maybe like in your case, your appointments in your appointment book or something like that. And that data is going to be built up over time. It's not like you're going to have like built-in data. What's the right word for it? Your data is dynamic, right? So it'll be determined at runtime based on what the user does, what your UI is populated with. Oops. And this kind of dynamic layout with dynamic data in your UI is enabled using something called an adapter. So there's a widget called an adapter view, or there's an abstract superclass of these widgets that display data that is provided by an object called an adapter. So an adapter basically converts some source data, so let's say you've got like a list of strings, or maybe you got a list of dates or something like that, into widgets that are then added and displayed in the adapter view. There are a couple of built-in or provided adapter implementations. So array adapter, you just give it an elements in a list, and it will populate it into a view. Which is just a text view. So this is a view group because it is a view, is a widget that consists of other widgets, and those widgets are created by the adapter. Adapter is kind of an unfortunate name because it sounds so generic, but that's what it does. Android has like this built-in database, and you can get a cursor when you query the database. And there's an adapter that just takes the values returned by that cursor and displays them also. And then there's something called a simple adapter, which really isn't all that simple, which has this like list of string keyed maps that lets you do this kind of fancy binding to the view based on the name of the data in its maps, which is probably really good for JSON data or something like that. There is now you're displaying data in your UI, and the data is represented by these other objects. And so it's important that when the underlying data changes, that the UI be alerted of that so that it can redraw itself. And the way you do that is by invoking the notify dataset changed method on the view, on the adapter. I don't remember where it is. It's probably on the view, on the adapter view, and that will refresh the display. So there are a whole bunch of views that use adapter. There's something called list view, which basically gives you a vertical list of elements from a list adapter. There's a grid, which provides a table. There's a spinner, which is a drop-down menu of choices. And we'll play with an example of one of these. Stack view gives you a bunch of cards that you can scroll through. This is good for when you've got like a bunch of images to select. A nice animation there. And also something called view animator, which is good for displaying animation. It's a nice little widget for animation. Where yes, it's got where you can just have you can start it playing the animation, and it'll just go flip through there until you tell it to stop. So let's play with one of these. Let's play with a list view. Sorry, there it is. Okay, let's add ourselves a list view. Actually, what is emulator? Yeah. List view, and then we'll just have a wrap content. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, and we'll give it an ID, and we'll just call it list view. Okay, so now we want to be able to populate it, and we'll do that in the activity here. We'll say on create, sure, we'll display the count, but then we'll also get the list view, oops, need to import it or something. Import class, yep, equals, find view by ID r.id.list view, and then oops, equals that. Oh, nice! I don't need to cast it anymore. That's super sweet. I'm gonna say list view dot set adapter, new list adapter. Oh, actually, wait a second. I did not want. Oh my gosh, that's huge! Yeah. How do I create a list adapter? Oh, I probably want an array list adapter or something like that. What was the thing called?
Array adapter.
Array adapter, is that right? Array adapter. New array adapter. Okay. Context. So I have to say get context. Get application context. Resource. This is which resource ID? This is the ID list view, I think. And then, oops. Nope, yeah, it likes that. And then, how about some objects? So, days of the week. Oh, is your list view a list view? Well, maybe it'll complain about mine too. Oops. Oh yeah, it totally doesn't like that. Oh, maybe it needs to be the parent? How does that work? I forget.
Can you give the parent an ID?
Yeah, ensures a resource ID is passed to API is the right type. For instance, get color string.name is wrong. Show ID resource type. Yeah, let me go look for an example of this. Let's just do a string of objects.
He just tells you what's wrong. He doesn't tell you what's right.
Well, you know.
Example.
Yeah, I know, right? So someone else would mess this up. You mess it in a different way. Okay. Yeah, probably what I need is the parent.
Oh, r.layout.activity main seems to fix it.
Okay. That would do it too. Okay. Right, yeah, it's the parent. Oh, okay. Interesting. Really? Okay. Actually, oh yeah, activity main. And then context, activity main. Oh, okay. Huh. That's neat. Okay. Why doesn't it launch it automatically anymore? I mean, I was thinking about it. Nope. Oh, where's it? It's broken.
Uses unchecked or unsaved operations.
Is your computer faster than mine? Is that why it's no?
Oh, you got a crazy thing.
Well, yeah. This is okay. This is not the right thing to look at. Sorry, what are you looking at?
I just got a warning.
Where?
Java compiler uses unchecked.
Oh, that's probably not
rather
it
than
then.
array adapter.
That's probably yeah.
But oh yeah, no, it doesn't run. It's not a warning. It's just saying. It's like
What is it saying? Raw.
raw type. Android.
That should be okay. Oh wait, array adapter of string. Okay, but that shouldn't make a difference. App info. Oops. Okay, so then how do I find extended controls? Nope. Boy, build? Nope. Profiler? No, that's not interesting. At one point I clicked on this, I think I clicked someplace and I didn't keep track. Where is so this is hey, here we go. Class cast exception. Linear layout can make class cast to a text view. Create view from resource, array adapter. No, okay, so okay. Cannot be cast to it. Wait, you need some sort of right, this is okay. This is something that I didn't quite understand when I was reading about it. No, this needs to be a text view. But where do you put it? Okay, so then, let's see here. I did not have an example, right? No, I didn't. No, so the whole idea here is that you provide it with a text view that that it then uses to then populate with each one. Let's figure out how all that works. Let's see here. List view. List view. That's the reference. List recycler. List material design. Kotlin. Well, let's just see what the. I'm sure this will give us an example. List view. What? Come on. Oh, but okay, it uses this like base adapter where you create your own. Okay, that's not very useful then. List adapter. Okay, so let's look for list adapter and see if it gives a good example.
Oh, the array adapter takes a type.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that fixed it.
What did?
Putting string in between the angle brackets.
Oh, but that's funny because I did it like right here, array adapter.
Array adapter's going to get it.
Really? Okay. Oh, the language says it doesn't need it, but maybe the compiler says it does? Oh, I closed the emulator. No, it didn't. Can't hot deploy because it crashed, I guess.
Yeah, it's not working.
Okay, not working. Oh, no. It is the activity main isn't what we want. It says it cannot be cast to a text view. And, I mean, let's just...
Why did it crash, though?
Yeah, array adapter requires the resource ID to be a text view. So, yep, and I think I understand, but I can't explain why. What you need to do there. It's something about. Oh, it's all using recycler view, which is neat and all, but this is like way more advanced than I want to show you right now. No. Okay, so like I need to create a text view widget. But like I don't want it to be there in the. How do I do that? Okay. Oops. Okay, so what do I want? I want Android list view example. Yeah, image view, text view. Array, using array adapter. Simple list. Oh, okay. You can use like simple list item 1. Oh, so you use like this built-in layout. That's weird. Try that. Okay. Android.r.layout.simple list item 1. That's weird. I don't understand. Okay. So what it needs is it needs a widget to then use with as sort of the template for all of this stuff. I wonder if that'll take. Can I? Okay, use the same selection for future launches. Thank you.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Oh my gosh! It's like you're from the future. There it is. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Okay. Oh wait. Totally did it wrong. Kind of have the Happy Days reference. There's always one every term. Or did I ever use the Happy Days reference? Was the Felicity one I was going to? Anyway. Okay. Yep, there it is. Nice. Okay, so now you can have a list here, and you can put inside scrollable stuff and everything like that. So, okay. Getting there. Yep. Oh, yeah. What is that? Oh, is this for rotating? What is that?
I think it's for like 2-finger action.
Oh, neat. Okay.
Stuff.
Wow. Okay. Novel. Okay. So then, gentlemen. Okay. Adapters. They're neat. Oh, we were talking about the slide. Okay. So here's some stuff that use adapters. Grid view if you want to have a table of widgets.
Well, since list view was so easy to implement, I don't know why we wouldn't.
Well, luckily there's the internet, and someone else already has it there for you. It's actually impressive, like how much stuff there is out there, and a lot of it's in Hindi too. So if you're
Well, and like Android app development is at least something that people are like doing it currently.
yes,
And interested
it's not Google Web Toolkit. Yeah. Okay. So you saw enough pretty things. Let's talk about XML. Actually, no, we're not going to take a break. We're going to take a break. We need a break.
Or we just need to stop taking 20-minute detours.
Nah, it was only like 5. But this is important stuff. This is how we're going to learn. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of XML files associated with Android applications that configure all sorts of things. These are and actually not XML files, but also we can have image files and other things like that. And these are all in the res resource directory. So we go back to the project, and we see here in source main resource, you have all of these, various kinds of, even things like that. Strings, files, all that's good stuff. So, for instance, we've seen that there are resources that represent the UI inside the layout. And so you're probably wondering what this R thing is. So this R is a class. And it's a class that is created by the Android compiler. It's R for resource. And there are fields in that resource like ID, which refers to, the ID is smart. It brings you right to the ID for list view. That's kind of interesting. But anyway, so yeah, what happens if we just go to the R? It brings you right there. Okay, that's not what I wanted. But anyway, things get compiled into a class called R. And then you can reference things like all the IDs. All of our IDs get put into one resource, and so you can reference them here. Same thing with layout. So everything in your layout directory gets converted into a field in the layout object, which conforms to the name of the XML file. So activity underbar main.xml is then available to your Java code as and actually activity main is in the, you probably can't see it, the res layout activity.main. That then gets converted into the R for resource .layout.activity.main field that you reference. It's actually an int. It's got some big ugly ID, but this is just Android's way of trying to keep things compact. So all this stuff gets compiled into these resources. So you can have resources that are the XML for the UI. We've seen this, and again, this is what we've seen all night. This is what you want to use for laying out your UIs. You don't have to create the objects yourself. I think we've kind of already covered this, but let's do it in a little bit more detail. These layout XML files contain the configuration of your UI, so you can declare views inside of view groups. You can nest things as deeply as you want. You have a very complex UI, all represented in XML. The ID property of widgets, let me explain this real quick. So you probably noticed that we went back and we put IDs on all of our widgets so we can reference them in other places. So for instance here, the image view, let's make this big. The image view is to the bottom of the ID button, and ID button is up here. So it's important that you, so to reference your widget object, you give it an ID. And when you prefix it with the plus, it says that I'm creating a new ID. So I guess whenever you have it here in the ID field, it should create a new one. But when you reference it, you just say @ID. The @+ will allocate a new ID. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah. So similar to CSS and HTML, since this seems to allude a lot.
Yep.
Is there a way to put a class attribute on something?
Well, for what purpose? For display? For styling?
If I want to make a bunch of objects, okay, that's a misleading word. If I want to make, I don't know, buttons in my app, and they all are going to look the same, but they're just going to be appearing at different times, and I put a class attribute on them, can I have that class attribute be affected by one operation?
I believe the way you do that in Android is you'd use a theme. I think that's what a theme is for. I don't know anything else about themes, but I think that's what you would use it for. So the whole idea is that the theme defines the look of the application. So let's say, I want to make all my so all my buttons, instead of here they're all a gray background. Oh, I want them to be a yellow background. I would use a theme to do that. But that's about as far as I know. So good question though. But yes, and so then, but I think it's probably. Well, I was going to say, if I think some apps, there's like branding associated with them, and so Facebook looks like Facebook, and so you want the same color scheme and stuff. So you probably don't want to follow the native theme. You would want to have your custom theme. But for this class, unless you got a whole heck of a lot of time, get stuff working, and then make it look pretty. Let's see here, and then as we've seen, we can apply properties to the widget. You can configure the widget. You can tell it information about its layout with XML attributes that begin with layout underbar. So the interesting thing here is when we say layout width, this is actually an instruction. This is more of a property of the layout of the view group that it's part of. In this case, it's a linear layout. It's more of an instruction to that than it is really a configuration on the button, which is another reason to use the XML. Trying to do that all programmatically using the APIs is super awkward. And you can include other resource files, and I don't know if you'd want to do that or not. Okay. There are a whole bunch of supported resource types, and they're all in these different directories. So you can have a bunch of colors, so you can reference them for, actually maybe this is a way to do that, so maybe you don't need to go the whole theme route. You can just reference the colors consistently from here. So you'd still say like, background color for button is color yellow. You could do that, and then easily change color yellow if you want a different tint or something, maybe.
I was also talking in terms of like just general operating. So if I do like an on-screen click, it's going to affect a particular element as a group or as like from its ID. But instead of saying like find element by ID, I want to see if I can do a find element by class.
Oh.
Kind of like jQuery.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, and that's kind of an unusual thing in UI programming. So I don't know if there's first-class support for it or not. You might just have to say like, "Hey, give me all the children," and like find all the children, that have a certain property. I don't know. I have to go through the API. So you can have lists of colors for various things. You can have drawable images. You have your layouts, of course. You can define menus as resources, which is always important. You can just have like binary files that might contain data or something like that. If you want more structured data, you can have the values directory. And so then, for instance, here in values, okay, so it has colors. You can have color resources. I'll make it a little bigger. You can have, what does it have in styles? Well, that's not very interesting. Strings, you can have resource strings. So this is always good to have your resource strings separate from your UIs for localization or just to be able to reference the strings easily inside your applications. And then if you just want to have other XML files, just data files, wherever, you can have those in resource XML. Again, all this stuff gets compiled into that capital R object. String resources are kind of neat. You can have things like string array by name. So actually, let's replace. This is what I should have done. Let's have a string array, and the name of the string array will be days. They like underbars here. Fine, of the week. And now I don't know why they're called items, but item is just like this, right? Yeah, as child item. So it's like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, typed correctly. And now what I can do, I've got the string array days of the week. So now here, instead of this, I can say get resource says get string array with r dot, shoot, what was that called? R dot values, shoot, r dot array dot days of the week. Yep, there it is. So now if I go and I launch it again, yay, and now it's got my days of the week. So it got it from that string resource file. And this is nice because then it's easier to update your XML than it is to go find your Java code where all of this stuff is hard-coded or hard to find, or well-defined. All sorts of other cool stuff. So a lot of this is about display strings and stuff, and so then there's this API for pluralizing strings, things like that. You can really have any strings in these resource files. Just be aware, this is XML that you're dealing with, and so there's some special characters that you have to escape in your resource files. So neat stuff there. Okay, I think this is the last stuff. Now, so far we have written like this gorgeous user interface, but you can't do anything with it, right? I mean, you interact with it, and it doesn't do anything. So now let's have it do something. Yes, finally, I know, right? Saving the best for last. Okay, so now, in Project 4, you had to get used to asynchrony. What I mean is that in Projects 1, 2, and 3, your command line program, you could point to where your program starts, what's going to happen based on the logic and where your program ends, right? You start your main method, it does its thing, it exits. Yay, and that's it. Project 4 was a little different in that you had the servlet that sort of sits there and its methods get called. When dealing with user interface programming, the thing about the thing about user interfaces is that the user can interact at any time, right? So it's like your program is waiting to be told that the user has done something. And the way this is represented in UI frameworks is almost always there's this notion of an event takes place. The user does something and an event happens. The user types some text, the user clicks a button, the user scrolls through something, and that generates this event that the system detects the event, and the system then delivers a representation of that event to your program. Like, oh hey, it'll go find that button and say, hey, you've been clicked. Or it'll be like, oh, hey, these keys were typed on the type board, or on the keyboard, or this thing was dragged to a different location. So the windowing system, the operating system, the windowing system knows how to get the event from the hardware, like when it's clicked or whatever. But your application is the one that actually decides what to do with it. And so this event is delivered to your application to something called listeners. And these are objects that handle the event. And the type of these objects are things like an on-click listener. So when you click on a widget, when you click on a view in Android, the on-click method of all of the on-click listeners that are registered, or actually on the one on-click listener that is registered on that object is invoked. And then your application implements that on-click method to do something interesting. Now, let's see here. I believe it's in the reflection lecture. I talked about something called anonymous interclasses. Does anybody remember that? It's this kind of wacky language feature that actually makes it, it makes it easy to keep the logic here. So we'll see an example of it in a moment. So you've got these listener objects that then receive these events. Now, some listeners merely respond to the event, but then in some kinds of events, your listener must say whether or not it's fully consumed that event or whether it should be processed further down the line. And so sometimes some types of listeners will return a Boolean. Now, events can happen at any time, and it's important that when you handle an event, you handle it quickly and efficiently. Otherwise, because all the events are handled in one thread, and the reason that is because the user wants his or her events to be handled in the order in which they appear, right? So if you were typing something, each one of those key presses triggers a different event. If they're handled by multiple threads, you're typing in a certain order, but your letters are popping up in all different order because it's asynchronous. So you want one event handling thread. Now, as a result, when you handle those events, you need to handle them efficiently. Otherwise, it'll appear that your application has frozen. Right? You click a button, and remember the bad old days of like Windows 3.1 where you'd click to save and start writing all this stuff to disk, and then your whole computer would freeze? Well, that's because there's one event handling that, and one thread handling that event, and it's doing a whole bunch of work, and all the other events are queuing up and aren't being handled. Same thing with Android. So all of the events are handled in the main application thread, and if you don't handle them quickly, you'll get a non-responsive application. And that's a bad user interface, bad user experience. So some other example. Actually, I'll just show you one, and then we'll go through all of this. So let's do something interesting.
Are we going to be able to package this with Maven?
No, you'll use Gradle, and I need to figure out exactly how you'll do that.
With Gradle.
And I'll run it with Gradle. I'm not going to open up an IntelliJ project for each one of your projects, but yeah. And I need to figure out. I'll tell you how I'm going to do that so that you can make sure that it works. So let's register a. Let's change our logic a little bit. Let's have a method here. We'll call it increment count. Let's display count, and let's put a space here so it doesn't look so damn ugly. Now let's call it the count is one wonderful Android application. I love to count. Okay, on create. So we'll set up the list view, and we'll say the following. Let's give us our button. Equals find view by ID r.id.button. Okay, so we'll get our button, and then we will we'll set the on-click listener. Okay, new on-click listener. And when this button is clicked, we are going to increment the count, and we are going to display the count. Let's give it a try. Oops. Yep, click it. The count is 1, the count is 2, the count is 3. So I'm clicking on a button, and I'll run under the debugger so we can see what's happening. Let's see here. I don't think I want this one anymore. Sorry, what? Yeah, I'll clear a bunch of those breakpoints. We'll look at the code in a second. I thought I told it to use the same selection for future launches.
Hey, David,
Oh, wait, remember the count being 5. Oh, no, wait, sorry, what?
does the Android library not have a way of making callbacks on examples?
This is the way it makes callbacks.
This is the callback method?
This is the callback. Oh, wait, what do you mean by callback method exactly?
That would take the idea that you would in fact make a new thread for every handler, but it would make a callback every time something worthwhile.
Something like that? I'm sure there's an API for that. Yes, okay, so if you really want, yes, async stuff, yes. You have I think services are best for that. If you're doing something expensive. Otherwise, yeah, I'm sure there is a way to do that. I don't know how to do it off the top of my head.
I would just assuming that like phones don't have multi-threading, I guess.
Oh yeah, I mean they certainly do. I mean,
Oh, they do?
well, the operating system provides multiple threads. Now, whether there's actual cores on them, I don't know. Oh, sorry, yeah. Let's make it big. So whether it's true multi-threading at the hardware level depends on the hardware, but the operating system, I mean, there are multiple processes going on, right? Every app runs in its own process, and within the process, you can have the service, and I assume there are multiple threads. Yeah, I think it's pretty fair to say that there are multiple threads inside the process. So there is multi-threading. It's just that the events are always handled in the main thread. Does that answer your question? But yeah, and there must be a way to do asynchronous things, and yeah, I saw some reference to it. You can go find it in the documentation. Okay, so here we are. We're debugging. We are debugging. Yes, and so now we are on create. So we basically go through here. Now we create the button. We set the on-click listener, but this on-click method is not invoked until I actually click something. So click, and there it is. So the whole idea is that when I click the button, Android, the operating system, the windowing system, detects the click on the button, and then creates the event, and then as a result of that, goes and finds the click listener. It's a click event. It gets the click listener, and then invokes my on-click method that I've added to the button, and I do my thing, and it updates it. So this is in essence how you handle events. You handle events. You respond to it using code, business logic here implemented in Java, and you use these listeners to then say, hey, here's how I respond to an event. So there are all sorts of different listeners. These are ones that are available on all widgets, I believe. So you can get a callback when there's a long click. So when you've held down when you've held your finger on something, you'll get a long click. when when a widget gains or loses input focus, so like let's say you've got a bunch of text fields and you go through them, you can detect that. So you can do things like oh hey, when I type in like a date and an appointment or something, you can do some validation. You'll note you can trigger validation when it loses focus, turn it red or whatever. Also respond to keyboard events, although that's only hardware keyboard events. Let's say you're on an Android device that has a physical keyboard. You'll get key listeners invoked there. Interestingly enough, software keyboards don't have that. It's the way it is, I guess. I don't quite understand why. It's probably way more efficient. And then there's if you have a touch movement that occurs within the widget, so maybe you're dragging your finger across something, it'll get a motion event. This is cool, right? So this allows you. This is how you respond to interaction with the user. Oh, wait, is that the end? It is, mercifully speaking. Yeah, you all made it too. So let's see here. There's one other thing that I wanted to show you. And that was the following. So you can add your listeners here, but because they are properties of your widgets, you can also specify the listeners here. Yeah, so let's see here. Listener. List selector. Actually, no, wait a second. Click. Oh yeah, on click. So like here, we will say, and so if you, let's see here, we'll call it handle list view click. So you can add, you can say, oh, listen, when the list views click, invoke this method, and then you can add that handler method here on the listener. And now we can do the same thing. We can increment the count. Well, actually, let's do the following. Let's where's the text field? So we'll just do this. This will be message. Oops. What? I wanted a variable. Extract variable, yes. Message. And then I'll just say set message here. And now, so now the view that is delivered to this is the list view. List view equals list view of view. And from this list view, I can say get selected item, maybe. I wonder what this returns. Selected item. Oh wait, is it a? Yeah, it's just a plain old list view, right? Yeah. So maybe this will be. Oh, we'll just see what it is. And then we'll say set message selected item dot toString. Actually, can I use what is it? Objects dot toString. Oh, I can just say string value of. Oops. So now what I can do here is I can say, it's here in my XML, I can say here's what happens when you click. Let's see what happens when I click. Oh, I'm debugging. Well, let's set debug point here. Oops. Oh, did it crash? It did. For an adapter view, you probably want set on item click listener instead. Thanks. Okay. That was very helpful. I just used the wrong one. On item click listener. On item click listener. Huh, that's interesting that it says that it doesn't know about it. Oh, wait. List view. Do I need to use an adapter? List view? Well, yeah, that's the name of the method. I think in XML. Oh, damn. That's okay. Handle on item click listener. Well, let's see if that works. So did it crash? Okay, I need to start over again.
Set to quick.
Nope, it didn't like it. Error linking resource files. Yeah. Huh. Well, wait a second. So I don't understand.
I did it for my
The
checkbox.
on-click was
It's
the, I think it was talking about the on-click listener you made in your main.
Oh, in the.
Yeah, that's still supposed to be on-click,
Well, but on the list view. So. What doesn't it like? Let's see if I can figure this out real quick. Because I'm getting sleepy. List adapter. I want list view. Is list view here in my history? It is. List view. XML attributes. Inherited from abs list view. Oh, maybe it doesn't. Oh, that's unfortunate. So, oh, bad example then. Okay, fine. Oh. I really wanted to be able to show this. Oh, you know what? Maybe I can still do that if I do something silly like. No, that's not very good. Okay, that's weird. I wonder why. So where do I add the item click listener? So that is a method. Item click listener. So classes, and inherited methods, public methods, set on key up, set adapter, set item can focus, set selection after. Where are the inherited methods? Yeah, from adapter view, set on item click listener. Oh wait, maybe that's why. On item long, that's long click. On item click listener. And did it add? Oh, implements on item click listener. Doesn't like. Oh yeah, I totally got that wrong. Okay. Oh, okay, because it's not a list view, but is that going to work on item click? Huh. Well, anyway. No, wait a second, that should work. So, okay, well, never mind. Enough of this. It's unknown attribute. Well, so then I don't have a good example. I guess I could do something like if I click the, oh, here's what I could do. I could click, okay, sorry, I'll try it again. Once more with feeling. Let's see here, on click, and which is, let's see here, instead of handle list view click, I'll say display current time in text field, and text in edit text. Oops. So I don't. So basically, now this is going to be the clock view. Sorry, text clock. So the view is the widget that receives the event, and then actually, so then can I say set message? Can I say something intelligent from here, like get time zone, get format, 24-hour? That's kind of neat. Get accessibility. Oh my goodness, too much. Can I say get time or something? Get time zone, get date, get display. Yeah, I know, right? Get text. Yeah, I could do that. Let's do that get 24-hour thing. Get 24. Sure, something a little different. Oh, what doesn't it like? Send message. Oh, it takes a car sequence. Fine. Change first parameter to car sequence. That should be okay. Okay. So I don't need this nonsense anymore. I can get rid of that interface that I thought I had to implement, which was dumb. Nice. Okay, so now, are you happy, Android? Seems to be. Let's try it again. What I'm trying to demonstrate here is that you can assign listeners inside the XML, which is actually kind of nice. Here it is, so we can click and get the count as 1 if we click on the time. That's useless. Okay. Anyway, so maybe it is get text is really what I want, which would make sense. Is it? Yeah. Okay. Which if you had it localized, maybe you would care. Yeah, or maybe it wouldn't. Oh my gosh, 9:15. We're actually going like the full. You're getting your money's worth tonight. Oops. Come on. Are you doing
I
it?
think it's done. It automatically. You had the lightning bolt available, so it just applied changes. So click the clock again.
Okay, there it is. Okay.
You see
Well,
the
anyway.
little message in the bottom.
Yeah, this thing like instant run applied code changes. Okay. Neat. Anyway, so that's how you can. Those are some ways to handle events. Yeah. So here again, my goal tonight was first of all to give everybody an opportunity to get their environment squared away, and I hope the people listening at home had a chance to do that. And then so tonight was all about understanding about activities and widgets and layout and events. So I hope this gives you enough to start playing with the user interface. So for Project 5, sketch it out. I mentioned Balsamic there, but write what you think your application is going to look like. Next week, what we'll do is first check in on what you've learned. So please start to try to implement things. Figure it out. Maybe figure out how to write an activity or two that transitions. And then we'll talk more about how you can structure your application and then store and persist your data. Sounds good? Yep.
If you just put fields like a map of owners to appointment books, and then Rod, your appointment book class owner. We basically have everything to do it now.
Yes, if you want to have multiple activities, you need to figure out how to get the data between the activities. I think that's sort of like the challenge that I see, and I guess I'll try to figure that out between now and next week.
Yeah.
Tell you guys. Great. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week. I will commit this code, and I will see you then.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I'm very hungry. Yeah.
Where did I change my build decorator? I think so.
Well, there's a
Just a moment.
around my office that I caught, so I'm gonna,
Go
yeah.
home.